The Smash Ultimate roster is steadily increasing, and just a while ago, 5 new fighters got revealed for Smash Ultimate. Granted, 3 of them were Echo Fighters, but that's still new characters nonetheless, with a reveal of both Simon and Richter Belmont, as well as the very unexpected King.K.Rool. The burning question on everyone's mind is, how good are they? Well, I can't really answer that, but we can speculate and analyze. Now, I usually don't talk about characters that have missing information, but this is a special case since one of the characters we did get a very good look at, that being Simon. Though some things are still unclear. But I'm just so excited to talk about these new characters, and I don't really think we're going to get any more footage in the near future. So I'll do my best to cover as much as possible by the footage we do have. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to be doing this in the order of reveal, starting with Simon and Richter. Just like the Direct said, Richter is an Echo Fighter of Simon, and they both seem to have almost identical movesets. The only difference between them being their looks, voice, and animations. Since they're both identical, we can use footage from both to analyze. Let's start by looking at what I presume to be his down tilt. Most moves that revolve around sliding on the ground are down tilt, so I'm just going off that. It reminds me a lot of Cloud's down tilt, except much faster. Interestingly enough, it seems to have a second part of the move, a hit where he launches himself into the air and kicks. From the looks of it, you can execute this kick whenever you want, and from a very early part of the move as well, or simply just not use any kick at all. In this sense, it reminds me a lot of Bayonetta's heel slide, and if you have played Smash 4, you know how annoying that move is to deal with, having a very solid 50-50 mix-up even when hitting a shield. From the looks of it, it looks like a very versatile and solid move on its own. In the trailer, there was nothing that looked like an F-tilt, so his F-tilt is still unknown. But there is this clip that does show what is almost undoubtedly his up-tilt. Although the camera is fixed in this shot, so we don't get to see the entire move. From what it looks like, they twirl their whip in the air over their head. It's hard to tell anything about the move since the camera is cut off, but if I had to guess, I would assume it has a decent amount of active frames, just by the way the animation swings. But again, that's just speculation. Having an up-tilt like this is probably going to be very useful for the Belmonts, because of their aerials being very peculiar, which we'll get into in a bit. Then there is their dash attack, which looks like a very standard dash attack. They spin their whip in a circle motion and it seems to be a multi-hit move. It looks like a decent enough burst option, it's too laggy to get any direct follow-ups after, and aside from that, there's really nothing that special about it. Luckily we got a good look at their aerials and special moves, so these are pretty easy to spot. Their aerials have a lot of range, like legitimately some of the longest reaching aerials in all of Smash history. Both his up air, back air, and forward air all have the Belmonts swinging their whip in the appropriate direction. Aside from having absurd range, they also seem very easy to combo into. Moves like the cross and down air all seem to be able to be comboed from. It also seems like you can actually angle the forward air. Based on these two clips, we can see that both show Simon throwing his whip at different angles, and this is pretty huge for a few reasons. The problem I fear when I see aerials like this is that they might have really good range, sure, but in a game with directional air dodging, hitting a very linear move might be difficult. But if you can angle them, that would fix this problem. Though we don't know if his other aerials can be angled or not as well, since they only showed his forward air doing it. Though it would be a little strange if it was just his forward air. Their neutral air looks like a pretty standard neutral air with a lot of active frames move. Though judging from their design archetype, I doubt they will be using this move a lot, since they seem to be much more zoning and projectile oriented fighters. Though having a neutral air with a lot of active frames have never really been a bad thing, so I can only imagine it's useful somewhere. Aside from that, there is their down air, which looks like a pretty standard dive kick. Like I mentioned earlier, you can actually get combos after this move. It's one of those dive kicks that bounce you into the air again. Kinda like Greninja's down air. It looks like one of those moves that might get you out of a bad situation if you use it sparingly. Their special moves look very interesting, consisting mostly of really strong looking projectiles. Their down B is probably the Holy Water, and I'm not going to lie to you, this looks just like a better version of PK Fire. The projectile might not travel as far, but it has the huge advantage of not needing to hit someone to activate. By the looks of it, the projectile itself does not activate on hit, but has a hitbox while traveling. And when it hits the ground, it activates and creates a lingering hitbox in place. The traveling hitbox seems to combo into the fire hits, so that's great. The fire does not seem to have any high knockbacks, so you can actually follow up on it. Honestly, it looks like an amazing projectile and a really versatile tool overall. Neutral B is presumably the cross. It could be side B as well, your guess is as good as mine. They throw it out in front of them and it travels quite a distance before returning back to the sender. The throw has relatively little lag, and that is a great thing. Being able to move while having an active projectile out is just a recipe for comboing. Yet again, this move just reminds me of a better version of a currently existing move, that being Link's Boomerang. Like we were shown in the direct, the Cross can actually very easily combo into stuff because of the absurd range of their aerials. Yet another amazing looking projectile. Side B looks to be the axe, and yet again another projectile. It travels at a very distinct arc before falling to the ground. And this is probably going to be the least useful projectile in my opinion. The angle is very specific and it has a fair bit of startup, though it's probably really great as an edge-guarding tool I can imagine. Seeing how the aerials seem to be very high and therefore it might be hard to hit opponents off stage, though it's probably a little too early to tell. But having a projectile that drops down like this will at least serve as a very low-risk edge-guarding option. Finally, there is their up B. It is an uppercut that goes, well, up. It looks like it has invincibility on startup, judging by this frame here when it looks like Kirby tries to hit Simon and it just faces through him. This would also make sense seeing how it's very reminiscent of Ryu's Shoryuken. Then again, it's possible that it does not have invincibility and the move just didn't come out yet. I honestly wouldn't be surprised either way. The only smash attack we gotta look at was their F smash, and I love how they used the same way to emphasize how long their F smash was from last time when Korin got announced. Except now Korin is the one getting smacked. I wonder if they will add another character with an even longer F smash in the next Smash game. They say it's a little slow, but honestly it's not really that slow when thinking about how much range it has. Guessing by the amount of lag it has, it's probably going to be safe on shield when spaced optimally. Sadly we didn't get a look at his other smash attacks, so there's still 2 attacks to go. Their grab seems to have throw combos, as evidenced in this clip where you can combo a down throw into a down tilt. Having as much range as the Belmonts do, I can only imagine they can get at least something else on higher percentages. Now the last thing I want to talk about is the whip, that being the part where you can freely move his whip. It reminds me a lot of Sheik's chain for melee and it seems to work very similarly as well, though I can't really understand where they would put this move. In melee chain was Sheik's side B, but all of the Belmont special moves are already used. In the Castlevania games where you could actually do this, it was usually tied to the normal whip attack and only happening when you held the button down. So maybe they're going for something similar here? Maybe it's tied to their jab or F-tilt, which we have not seen yet. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Moves like these are really hard to guess how useful they will be, but it's fun that they're at least exploring this territory since it was absent from Smash 4. Alright, that's it for the Belmonts. Again, there are some moves that are missing, but I do feel like we got a very good look at how their playstyle is going to be. They strike me as very summoning heavy characters. From what we have seen, it really seems like he wants to keep his opponents at a whip's distance. I'm honestly extremely excited to play as Simon and Richter. Dark Samus and Chrom are the next 2, and they are both Echo Fighters. Chrom is an Echo Fighter of Roy, except that he has a rendition of Ike's up B. Chrom seems to be the Lucina of Roy, whereas Lucina is Marth without Tipper. Chrom seems to be Roy without the Noodle Sword. Which sounds great honestly. Roy's problem has always been that he has a lot of speed and power, but having the curse of being a sword character that gets punished for using his range optimally. So I do really think Chrom has a lot of potential just by that alone. Dark Samus is a little less easy to pin down. There doesn't seem to be any big obvious move changes like with Chrom's up B, and after having looked through all the footage I honestly couldn't find that many differences. Obviously all their moves look different, but they seem to work almost identically. Though if I had to guess, I could assume that Dark Samus probably has a little bit more power and maybe is a little slower or laggier. And finally, the big boy himself, King.K.Rool. Again, we only got a very small trailer consisting of a few different moves, so I can't give a complete overview here. We first get a look at one of his special moves, and it's a projectile which also seems to work as a possible command grab. It looks very similar to Kirby's Inhale, and the projectile reminds me of a lot of Bowser Jr.'s Neutral B. The details of the move is a little vague. If you have to use the Inhale part of the move, then it's probably going to be not so great. But if you don't, then it could be pretty good. Also, I just want to point out that King.K.Rool gets to have a gun while Snake is not allowed, which is a crime in and of itself, honestly. Next we see what is almost undoubtedly his dash attack. It seems pretty fast and looks like it lasts for a long time, which is always great for a dash attack. Though what is a little bit more interesting is that it actually has super armor, which will certainly make it a prime anti-air option, as you can just tank moves that people try to land with. It does seem very laggy though, so if you miss it, you're getting punished for sure. Next is Zuppy, which looks like a pretty standard recovery move. It rises fairly fast and does seem to cover a lot of distance. Hopefully it does have a hitbox, because if it doesn't, then it could be really easy to intercept. Then we get a look at what looks like a counter. So I presume this is his down B. It looks like a very standard counter, but maybe there is something more to it that we just don't know yet. If it's just a normal counter, that's a little boring. Though he would be the first heavyweight to have a counter like this, which could be pretty interesting. Then we see his F smash, which looks pretty decent. It's probably very strong, but it's not fast by any means. Then we see one of his other special moves. It could either be his neutral or his side B. Both the gun and this move does fill the neutral slot. It's a pretty fast projectile that works a lot like the cross actually. First traveling forward, then heading back to where it got thrown from. I do wonder how it works though. Does he have to catch the ground on the way back? Because that is pretty important. Maybe it has a cooldown if you don't catch it. It's a little too early to tell, but it's certainly possible. Either way, it looks like a very solid projectile. And again, he follows the trend of being a very different heavyweight character. After that, there is this move, and this is probably the one I'm the most unsure about. He slams his foot in front of him and makes the characters get the pitfall effect. It could either be his down smash or maybe his F-tilt. Seeing how all his other special slots are occupied, it's probably not one of those. It looks a little slow, but it could be very rewarding if you can land it. So it has potential. Now that's about as far as the reveal trailer goes, but just as I was about to finish up this video, we got a new gameplay showcase of King.K.Rool, and this not only confirmed some of my suspicions from earlier, but also gave us a good look at his aerials. First of all though, look at that pivot grab. Looks like King.K.Rool has taken a few pages from the Bowser book. We also got a better look at his up throw, which is a suplex-like move that seems to function very similarly to Charizard and Kirby's up B. Based on that fact, I feel like it's safe to say that it probably has some form of killing potential. Though don't quote me on that, it's just a speculation. His Nair is basically the same as King Dedede's Nair. It doesn't have a lot of lag, so you can probably combo after it like Dedede can. This looks like a really important move to King.K.Rool's moveset, and it seems like a very safe option overall. His forward air looks reminiscent of Diddy Kong's forward air, though it seems a little slower, but seems to pack more of a punch. In the footage we saw, we did see this really cool and interesting combo consisting of neutral B and forward air. Just a little taste of what combos he'll be able to do. At first it was a little unclear if this even was his forward air since it looks like a back air, but there was no raw air preformed, so King.K.Rool did not switch directions during the dash, so it was his forward air. Back air looks like a very strange move. It actually has King.K.Rool turning around in the air and then delivering an arm swing behind him. In that sense it looks a lot like Ganon's forward air. And it will probably function almost identically if I had to guess. And I don't get why they made his forward air look like a back air and his back air look like a forward air. It's just like they're deliberately trying to confuse us. Now his two other aerials we didn't really get a great look at, but they are still there. As you can see, this is actually his down air, though it gets cut off because he lands and he didn't use down air anywhere else in the match. This is the only footage I have of it. It looks like a fairly slow stomp below K.Rool, and I would be really surprised if it didn't spike. Aside from that, we would have to actually see it in action to be able to say anything more about it, honestly. His up air looks pretty good as well. It's very fast, though it does not exactly cover that much area. Though seeing how King.K.Rool seems to have a lot of different setups, this might not be that big of an issue. With all of his aerials out of the way, I want to further talk about what is probably his side B. From this clip we can clearly see that the crown has to be catched by King.K.Rool, or else it falls on the ground and can be picked up by other characters. It then either has to fall off screen or despawn before K.Rool can get it back, unless he picks it up himself presumably. Though what is kinda weird is that the crown does not respawn on King.K.Rool's head, but nearby him, and then it simply snaps to his head when he is close by. This will probably lead to situations where the crown simply spawns and then falls on the ground, which is not that great. It still looks like an amazing move, and having seen it in action, it only looks even better. With a lot of combo potential and seeing how he has some really strong aerials, that could get dangerous. But that's it for all the new characters. The roster is constantly getting bigger and it looks like it's going to be a very interesting game to play. Honestly, I'm super excited to play as the Belmonts. I might legit actually main Richter when he comes out. I hope you enjoy this analysis of these new characters. When more information is revealed, I'll be making a video updating the current find, so stay tuned for that. But what do you think of these new characters? Are you going to main any of them? Let me know in the comments. But until next time, thank you so much for watching.